Hello and welcome to Your Health Reclaimed with DrPND, where we help you reclaim your health with tips, tools, and resources to live your most optimal and vibrant life. Here's your host, DrPND.
Hello and welcome to Your Health Reclaimed. This is your host, DrPND. And today we are going to talk about insomnia and general sleep disorders. And I wanted to address the 5 patterns that I see in my practice, what we call the 5 types of insomnia. They're very common. A lot of them are interrelated. You can have more than one, but these are the general 5 types of insomnia that I want to talk about today. And generally speaking, what it entails to address that. As always, you guys know everything has to be addressed at the root cause and not just manage symptoms. But I want to give you guys specifics, or as specific as I can, without obviously doing functional testing and so forth. I would like to also address some basic, inexpensive, easy, effective, and safe supplements that you can try. And what I use in my practice, generally speaking, to treat that and address those issues. So again, this is not specific to any of you guys. I do very customized protocols with each person I work with, depending what they need. But generally speaking, these are protocols and effective aspects that I use what I'm about to go over. So insomnia obviously is issues sleeping. It has become an absolute epidemic in our country. I know in Europe as well, Eastern Europe at least, where I'm from, that too has become increasing issue. But here in the States, we have a severe sleep problem. So we all know that sleep is a pillar of health, right? That is absolutely critical in supporting overall well-being. Disrupted sleep can affect concentration, focus, memory, pretty much any other function in the body, and is associated with dysregulation of a number of aspects of our physiology. I mean, research has demonstrated numerous times the impact of disrupted or irregular sleep patterns on many things, such as insulin sensitivity, blood glucose regulation, weight, as well as cardiovascular function, and on it goes. I mean, just so everything is, connected to sleep. When people try to address, chronic disease and chronic issues, oftentimes, they'll focus on supplements, they'll focus on, food, but seldomly do people truly focus on optimizing sleep. And, these are the foundational basis, is what we call part of the 8 laws of health. And sleep and proper rest is absolutely essential and fundamental to that, because very little things change if that is not addressed, really, if anything at all, even if your nutrition and everything else is on par. So there's a lot of evidence, with sleep now that points to increased risk also for certain cancer types in patients with insomnia, parasomnia, and in general disrupted circadian rhythms as a product of their life or shift work, apparently even. Yeah, I know my father had a problem with that. He actually became obese when he started working the graveyard shift. After a few years, he really struggled with that. So it really is a lot. Epidemiological studies have also identified impaired sleep as the independent risk factor for all-cause mortality. Insomnia is often considered also to be a disorder of increased somatic, cognitive, and cortical activation. A lot of individuals with insomnia will experience, physiological hyperarousal in both the central and peripheral nervous systems. Genetics may also play a role in etiology of insomnia. I don't really know. But they have definitely identified some various snippets that are associated with sleep disorders, circadian rhythm function. I hate to use genetics as an excuse in any way, because honestly, there's no really concrete evidence. Is it kind of the chicken or the egg? I can tell you from personal experience and professional experience that it is a lifestyle issue more than anything. Also, obviously, from past experiences and traumas and so forth, which obviously are part of a lifestyle. But regardless of what, even if there were some genetic components to it, still the epigenetical aspect, will override most of these. So even if you fix something, 70, 80, 90%, you're still far off than where you were before. So just be careful, when people talk about genetics and they blame genetics on aspects. Just because your, grandfather and your father didn't sleep well, for example, that doesn't mean that, you shouldn't either. A lot goes into that. Okay. In a nutshell, people always ask me, what are the diagnostic biomarkers and clinical indicators of insomnia? There are few, but ultimately a comprehensive thyroid panel, adrenal stress index, which is called a 4-point salivary cortisol test, organic acid test, stool test. All those things make a big difference in that. Also, whole blood histamine test and cryptopyrrole, which is a urine test. All those can be used in the evaluation and addressal of insomnia. And whole blood histamine and the cryptopyrrole in particular are very important when addressing the anxiety type of insomnia, which I'll go over here, and or anything that's driven with depression, especially anxiety. So these are very important markers to look at and to be able to see what's going on, because if some people have a severe sensitivity to histamine, they have a chronic high histamine response, whether exogenous and or endogenous production, and they chronically have whole blood high histamine levels, it will absolutely can trigger anxiety, panic attacks, and ultimately will affect sleep. Very similar thing with the cryptopyrrole, which is very common in depression and anxiety. A lot of practitioners who work with children with autism, that's a staple test that they look for if people have elevated cryptopyrrole levels. Copper metabolism problems with high or very low copper, that too can cause anxiety and ultimately cause problems with sleeping. So it's never a simple solution. I know a lot of people, they ask me about, hey, what can I take for sleep? We have to get out of the mentality of the conventional compartmentalized model of treatment, meaning there's a symptom A, and then you're going to take a medication A to be able to address that. Same thing, they'll say, well, I don't want to take medications. What supplement can I take, to sleep better? There's seldomly a single supplement that you're going to take to be able to address your sleep problems if you have chronic insomnia, especially. As a matter of fact, there's not a single supplement you're going to take to address truly chronic insomnia. But that mentality has to be, understood and removed, because when you're addressing root cause chronic problems, you have to address the root causes, and a lot of times you have to dig deep, and there are many, and it's a multifactorial, complex problem to address oftentimes. So the proper testing has to be recommended. But in general, obviously, diet and nutrition is extremely important, right? One of them is simple things like avoiding caffeine containing products in general. If you're stressed, if you have anxiety, if you have a lot of insomnia, coffee will interfere with sleep without fail. I don't care how well you metabolize it, it will. You don't believe me? Try it. Take it out for a day or two, see how you sleep. At the very least, keep consumption to a minimum and nothing later than 11 o'clock in the morning. I'll venture to say even no later than 10 o'clock to be able to kind of compensate for the circadian rhythm. So that's huge. Another thing is avoiding alcohol. I've done many podcasts and articles on alcohol and what is the problem with alcohol consumption, chronic alcohol consumption, regular alcohol consumption. People say, yes, will help me go to sleep. That is true because it's a depressive, and for the temporary being, it will for most people. But it will interfere with proper sleep. You'll never be able to get into this deep sleep, restful, refreshing, rejuvenating sleep pattern that your body needs when you're consuming alcohol. It is a depressive, especially if you have type 2 diabetes or a pre-diabetic insulin sensitivity, if you're overweight, and especially if you have sleep apnea, that will absolutely exacerbate all those things to a whole nother level. So remove alcohol, remove or severely reduce caffeine before 10 o'clock. Again, simple things. There's really nothing to talk about before these things take place. So when people come to me and they have insomnia problems, we get deep down to their lifestyle. And when I see alcohol, when I see caffeine, especially overuse of caffeine later in the day, the first prerequisite is for them to remove those things from their lifestyle, temporarily at least. Because aside from that, if they're not willing to do that, there's nothing else to talk about at that point. So junk food, that's just a given. Refined carbohydrates, industrial seed vegetable oils, artificial preservatives, sweeteners, colorings, all those can interfere and cause some degree of sleep to some people, not all, but to some people. And remember, don't compare yourself to somebody. I don't care who you know that they can drink, smoke, do drugs, eat whatever they want, eat all the processed food, eat all the artificial chemicals, and then sleep like a baby. First of all, I've never seen anybody do that in an adult life, what I described. But even if they do, that's great for them. They're perhaps been blessed with some phenomenal genetics, and they're an outlier in humanity, genetic freak, if you want to call it. And so don't compare yourself to them, because you're not. The only question you should be asking yourself is, do I have a problem sleeping? Am I sleeping optimally? Not what your kids are sleeping, or your wife is or husband is sleeping, not where your friends are or people that live the same lifestyle as you. But the question is, are you sleeping optimally? Okay, that's the only question you should be asking. So what everybody else is doing is none of your concern. Okay, the minute you understand that, the minute you're going to start to be able to really address those issues, because a lot of people it's a big stumbling block to a lot of people, because they constantly compare themselves, especially if their social surrounding, friends, family is very strong into lifestyles and habits that go against proper sleep hygiene and proper sleeping. It's very hard for them to give that up, unfortunately. So again, you have to be honest with yourself. So anyway, diet is huge. We're not going to go into that, but a balanced meal, healthy protein, healthy fats, healthy starches, a lot of fiber, from fruits and vegetables, preferably organic. Eat balanced meals. Eat whatever is appropriate for you. Sugar, laden beverages are a big problem, especially now. People drink Monster drinks. I think it's a $45 billion industry. Monster, that company itself, Monster drinks. And there's a good reason behind it, because people literally gulp those like it's no tomorrow. I've seen people that they'll have anywhere from 4, 5 to 10 of those a day, and they can't even function before they have 2. That's how badly they damage themselves. So you have sugar, you have caffeine. It's a deadly combination for sleep. It feels phenomenal at first, because literally these are 2 drugs ultimately you're taking, but it will get you eventually. It will absolutely destroy your sleep patterns and ultimately your health. So you have to get those out. Energy drinks, especially the ones that are sugar laden, are absolutely horrible. So those have to go. There's no even reducing those. It's literally avoiding those completely. In lifestyle interventions, obviously going to include integrating stress management techniques such as breathing and meditation and other things. These are hard. These are not easy, because obviously a lot of people don't have time for that, or it's hard for them to have that habit. But they make a difference. Avoiding blue light. I know people have heard about blue light exposure, but that's a real thing. Now, there's a company called Black Blue Light. I actually have a couple of their glasses. One of them is for the computer, because now I work on computer all day, and the other one is for at night. We have noticed a massive shift in exacerbation of insomnia, probably starting 10, 15 years ago with the advent of LED lights. The LED lights are even worse than fluorescent lighting. It's absolutely horrible for you. So one thing, a simple thing, is to replace all of your bulbs at home with blue light free bulbs, and also have dimmer switches to be able to down there, and or wear glasses that are blue light blocking glasses at night. It makes a difference. It literally makes a big difference. You don't believe me? Try. So avoiding that blue light exposure, especially in the evening, is absolutely essential for that. Not everybody is sensitive. It will affect everybody to some extent, but some people very menially. Some people are extremely sensitive. They'll have, severe effect on them. So these are very important. Taking a simple Epsom salt bath at night, that too will make a big difference. Just to help kind of ease the burden. Again, it's not going to address the issues, but these are just lifestyle interventions. The way you're going to know you reached optimal concentration of Epsom salt in the bathtub is to pour enough salt when you have the warm water that's as warm as you can stand it. When you fill the bathtub, there's actually some of the salt sitting still at the bottom undissolved. That is when you have reached what is called a full concentration of 20% salinity, which would be about the equivalent of the ocean water concentration. And that's what has the most healing effect. A lot of people will underdo. They'll put a cup or two in a whole bathtub. That's pretty much worthless. So make sure that you're putting enough. Right? And this average size bathtub, you'll probably dump half of those big bags that they sell at Walgreens or CVS or any in the drugstore, which is probably equivalent to about 4 to 6 cups, actually. So make sure that, again, it's cheap, it's ineffective. It's effective, but very inexpensive. So make sure you have the concentration of the Epsom salt correct. Another thing that makes a difference, again, you're not going to address the root cause, but all those things that I'm talking about, they help mitigate that, help to, improve that to some extent or another. Setting your bedroom to a cool, comfortable temperature. There's an argument what temperature is best. I can tell you this, then across the board, it's never above 70 degrees. The closer to 62, 65, 66 degrees it is, the better it is. Nowadays we have the comfort, obviously, of climate control homes. So set your temperature that is at least 69, 68 degrees. The darker, the colder, the better. Make sure that you have curtains or shades that block out light as much as possible, especially if your house is somewhere next to a street light or one of your neighbor has a floodlight or anything bright that they turn on at night, which some neighbors do. Just make sure you have that, and curtains and blinds that block that light as much as possible. And ultimately turning off TV and any kind of digital device aside from reading something comfortable, but watching action-packed movies or dramas or horror, let alone, or anything that is a lot of action, a lot of movement, even news, that your brain has to process. That will interfere with optimal sleep. It's hard to understand, but ultimately what you're addicted to or what is causing the problem is called rapid frame of reference. So, for example, say you're watching an action movie, really any movie, and what you're ultimately, doesn't matter what the movie's about, obviously, horror and gore and stuff like that is even worse, but regardless, you're ultimately introducing a rapid frame of reference, right? So you're covering, for example, the life or days or weeks or months or years of the character of the movie, whatever that particular media is. You're covering that within an hour, hour and a half, right? Because every movie is about hour and a half, 2 hours. So ultimately, you can go through somebody's whole life, technically, in the whole movie. Well, that's called a rapid frame of reference. One, it can be addictive. If you don't believe me, ask how many people are addicted to social media, and this is exactly why. Back in the day, the rapid frame of reference was, for example, like a regular movie on TV. We used to be able to rent VHA tapes and then CDs. Now, most people, they look at a movie, they can't get through it. They'll have to scroll on their phone. They have to do something else. Even the movie industry itself has increased the amount of frame of reference within the time frame of the movie itself. For instance, so things were a lot calmer. Like watch movies from the 80s, 70s, 80s. Watch movies now. It is much more intense, much more action, much more frame of reference density that is in there. So I know I'm going on a tangent about that, but it makes a big difference. Best thing to do is read something benign, something fun. calming. Reading is really makes a difference. Yes, you can read a Nook or something like that. They have the blue light options, but use low light and preferably get the glasses, because those things do make a difference. I know people have talked about these things to death. I'm probably the millionth person behind, but there is a reason why I'm saying it, because it makes a big difference. Okay, so the more and the faster you guys better understand these concepts, the better you'll start sleeping. So if you're somebody who is struggling with these things, if you don't address those issues and start making those lifestyle interventions and changes, you will never address the root cause. I can promise you that. Okay. All right. So let's go into the 5 types of insomnia. These are not clinical diagnoses. These are not anything specific written in stone. These are just what we call patterns of sleep disturbances and that we see. And remember, insomnia is not a one-size-fits-all condition, but it expresses itself through deeply interconnected patterns, usually on many levels. And a lot of those subtypes, a lot of times will coexist together. All right. So, number one of the insomnia types that I see a lot, I have struggled with that in the past, really badly myself. So I'm personally connected and experiencing that, is the anxious type insomnia. So this pattern is often driven by actual anxiety. It can be also particularly around sleep itself. People actually get anxious for not being able to sleep, and that kind of creates a vicious cycle. That begins where anxiety worsens really for a lot of people, and their ability to fall asleep is, greatly, perturbed. So this is a very common type that really just can down spiral very fast, especially if there is external factors. So the experience of this insomnia can manifest, generally speaking, in 2 distinct ways. One is obviously difficulty falling asleep, right? Spending an hour or more, sometimes several hours tossing, turning, laying there awake, fueled by overwhelmed anxiety. And that overwhelming anxiety sometimes, it can be actually subliminal. It's hard to explain, but it's not necessarily, oh God, I feel really anxious, I need to take a Xanax, or I need to, do something. It can be like a low grade anxiety that still overwhelms you, cannot fall asleep. The second distinct pattern of this, it manifests itself is early morning awakenings. The waking usually happens between 2 and 4 a.m. and the people are unable to achieve restorative sleep at all. And often they feel, exhausted. And then the feeling of, exhausting dread while, hovering between light sleep and wakeful sleep happens, and just really exacerbates things. But you have those, again, early morning awakenings between the 2 and 4. This form of sleepless nights, it does not start overnight, but rather actually builds over time, and can be triggered by ultimately emotional stressors such as personal loss, high pressure life events, past trauma, adult, childhood, you name it. And oftentimes it is a cumulative pattern. It's not something that happens right away. It can be something, very devastating that happened, but a lot of times it's, it builds over time. And oftentimes people identify it, like in my case, I experienced a personal loss, a family member, and when that happened, after the shock wore off, the grief cycle, it was playing itself out, it kicked in, and I started having that. Which is really, really unpleasant. And I had to, begin to address it very quickly, but it was exactly that. So it was not the event itself that caused everything. That was basically the straw that broke the camel's back. They triggered everything else with that. And there were some past things and other life stressors and stuff like that that we all go through, but ultimately I reached my limit. And also remember something, we all have our limits. Physical limits are very easy to see. Somebody has athleticism, they're strong, they can, for example, lift a certain weight, some people can't. People have different heights. All these are limits of physical nature. But then there's also emotional, mental, and ultimately spiritual limits. And these are a lot harder to recognize. Mental are easier. You can always take an IQ test, you can do cognitive tests, you can do other stuff to kind of see what, ultimately how smart you are, what your mental capacity is. But the emotional is very hard because you really don't know until you actually reach that. So there's some people who you ask and like, man, how are you still living? Somebody lost their whole family in a tragic accident, and here they're working full time. And I mean, obviously they're in pain, but they're functioning. You'll never know it. And there's people that commit suicide after that, or they have to be institutionalized, and they're never the same. That's a typical example of somebody reaching their, emotional limit with that. So the anxious type is it's a big one that I see a lot. All right. Here are some kind of general examples of the root causes that happen. I see like a lot of late teens, early adulthood. That's when really things start to get bad for people. And here's why. You have erratic sleep patterns, okay, fueled by late nights. And again, a lot of, late teens, early adulthood, people having fun, partying, working, grinding, burning the proverbial candle with both ends. Now you have the electronics use, screens all the time, LED lighting, the severely inconsistent schedules, and all those can and will lead to, anxiety-fueled insomnia over time. There's no doubt about that. That's directly connected to what people call adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue for most people, if they live the wrong way with what I just described, can take anywhere from 3 to 7 years to reach, again, depending on the person, depending on severity and their limit. But anybody, give or take, is going to reach that. The second, a big hit happens, early to mid 30s. That's when you have life demands, career pressures, relationships, stress from relationships. A lot of people nowadays, unfortunately, go through separation, divorce, which obviously are huge. Raising children. Now you have chronic disease epidemic with children as well. So that's a whole other issue. We see parents that are just absolutely beat down with, kids from, retardation, autism, other chronic diseases that really shouldn't be happening. So all those things will lead, to develop the anxious type of insomnia and the, inability to stay asleep. The third pattern that develops in the 40s to 50s for men, but mostly women, is the perimenopause. That's when you have hormonal changes. For women especially, is really bad because you have fluctuating cortisol levels along with changing sex hormone levels. You have, stuff. I mean, these are things that contribute to sleep disturbances. As a female, they may feel, surges of evening energy or anxiety, despite any physical, exhaustion. Males, less so, but low testosterone, low DHEA, it's definitely also a pattern that I see and that we see in my industry. So this is the anxious type. So how, what can we do with those? Well, the first thing is you have to identify the stress triggers and learn how to down-regulate those stress responses. Some you'll be able to, some you can't. That's when a lot of times help is needed. From a psychiatrist, a counselor, some kind of support structure. Okay, because all those things will enable, when you address the stress, you'll definitely help to improve and enable deeper, more interrupted sleep. Whatever that might be. Because remember, any improvement is better than no improvement. Using daily nourishing rituals, again, like I described before, Epsom salt baths, breathing, calming down, walking in nature, stepping outside. Basically, whatever is stressing you out, you have to learn how to best you can mitigate that, or whatever you can eliminate. But these are very, they're free for most people, really, is to practice this, but you just have to build those nourishing habits and rituals into your routine. It's not easy, guys. There's no simple solution here that I'm going to offer. If you're looking for that, you're the wrong podcast. And anybody offering any easy solutions, they'll be lying to you through their teeth. But so it's hard work. It is not easy. And remember, it didn't take you a day or two or a week or a month even to get to that point. It took you years to get to that point. Also engaging quiet, on guided meditation routine, whatever that is for you. In the Christian faith, my wife and I have, we meditate on the Bible. We read biblical scripture and meditate on God's word. It is very common. It is very peaceful. It settles, if whatever your religion is or lack thereof, find whatever works for you. There's different ways to meditate, but it does help. Read some light, pleasant reading that is not going to trigger your CNS. Don't read, high action drama, horror novels that really trigger anxious thoughts or trigger a lot of action. Because even though if you're not watching a rapid frame of reference, you're still playing that rapid frame of reference in your mind. You'll see everybody's different, but light, gentle reading, something that is fun or something that is calming, it just makes a difference. It is hard because if you don't think you're addicted to screens and to movies and to TV and entertainment, ultimately it's entertainment. That's what it is. Whether you're scrolling mindlessly through Facebook or any of the other social media, or watching sports or watching your favorite show at night, which we have been guilty of before, is you're addicted. If you don't believe me, try to stop it and see how bad you're going to do, because I promise you're going to miss it really badly. And most likely it's going to take you time to formulate a new habit of reading and doing everything here that I'm describing. So you have to be realistic with that. It takes time, be patient, but these are things you have to do. The next step is that you can take to support yourself, with a holistic practitioner. If you have a chronic, deep-rooted issue, there are a lot of stuff that you can do yourself to improve upon that. But ultimate address of those problems is usually almost always going to take help. And there'll be a combination of doing some good, healthy counseling and also working with a holistic practitioner that they're going to be able to test, not guess, test with the proper testing, see where your endocrine hormones are, see where your neurotransmitters are, see what has to be balanced, see what has to be taken out. Because for one person with the same symptomology, that might completely help them, and the other person might not help or even make things worse because you don't know what you're dealing with. So get a health, somebody who is a holistic health practitioner to be able to help you with that. The neurotransmitters are very important. So I'm going to give you some direct application stuff that you can start today. The neurotransmitter health is very important. That's everything. So especially when it comes to anxiety, okay? A lot of people are overstimulating their central nervous system. They drink too much caffeine, obviously too sugar, chemicals in their food, alcohol, all that stuff really wrecks your, central nervous system. It really does, and puts you in a fight or flight, adds daily stress and trauma to that, and just the recipe for disaster. So you have to balance those neurotransmitters out. So things like serotonin, gaba, dopamine, and the other ones, these are very healthy and good for, proper mood and support. So one of the things you can do is get a very good quality gaba supplement that has L-theanine in it. You can try melatonin. Melatonin has to be dosed the proper way. Start with very small dose, like 0.5 or even 1 milligram, and see how that works for you. Glycine and taurine, two amino acids that are very cheap but very effective in, helping your central nervous system come down, because these guys are precursors to a lot of those neurotransmitters, and a lot of people don't get enough of those amino acids. Magnesium threonate, magnesium malate, and magnesium glycinate. These are three forms of magnesium that, among overall, they specifically are very beneficial for adrenal fatigue, anxiety, high stress, high cortisol type scenario, which pretty much anybody who has anxious type insomnia is going to have by default. So these are the types of magnesium that you're going to want: the threonate, the glycinate, and the malate. And you can take all those three, throughout the day. It doesn't really matter when, but spread out throughout the day. at the proper dosing. It's hard to say what you need because, again, you have to test. Everybody's a little bit different. But some people might need to, in the upward dosing of 1,000, 1,200 milligrams of total magnesium a day to actually be able to have effect. I use a few products. One of them is called NeuroMag by Designs for Health. It's on my website. Go to drpnd.com, click on the store link. You'll be able to see it, NeuroMag. There's also a product called Pharma GABA. It's a very high quality, very pure pharmaceutical grade GABA supplement. That too is very good. Basically, good isomer of melatonin as well. And the NeuroMag is the magnesium threonate. Then you have magnesium malate and also magnesium glycinate. And these combined can really make a big difference, in improving your anxious type of insomnia. Doesn't matter what insomnia you have, give or take, you'll do good on taking those regardless. And you'll see these are going to be patterns in any of those regardless. But these are just cheap, simple, effective things that you can start doing now to be able to play with the doses and see what works for you. You really cannot overdo it. Just titrate the dose up, and as you get an effect, once you get a good effect that you like, stay at the dose, and that's pretty much it. But you can do a lot with just those simple type of supplements. Again, usually it's much more deeper than that, but for people that cannot afford or don't have access to a holistic practitioner, but they don't want to, these are things that they can afford. And pretty much most of us can afford those, cheap types of supplements, relatively speaking. So that'll be something that you want to do for those. The second type that we're going to talk about is the overthinking type of insomnia. This one is a tricky one because a lot of those people that have high intellect, they're type A, especially people that are, in managerial positions, have a lot going on in their life. This can be tough. So this sleep challenge is often associated with racing thoughts and overactive mind. And they also actually coincidentally come along with actual digestive issues. So you see those back and forth. Again, it's chicken or the egg. The gut has to be addressed regardless when it comes to sleep. I've never seen anybody with sleep disorder who does not have also gastrointestinal problems. What came first, who knows? And quite frankly, who cares? Doesn't matter. It has to be addressed. People get into stupid arguments about, well, your gut caused you anxiety and vice versa. It's none of it true. It can be both. And oftentimes it's literally both. So sitting here and arguing and trying to stipulate, whether the chicken or the egg came first, you're wasting your time and money. If you see something that has to be addressed, address it. Don't worry about what came first. So this type of insomnia can show up in two different ways. So you have waking mid-sleep. You basically wake up between the hours of 2 a.m. on average, midnight and 2 a.m., I'm sorry. So between 12 and 2 a.m. and you feel wide awake. It can be 30 minutes, an hour or two, and your mind is just going mile a minute. Think about work problems, random thoughts, worries, sometimes even try to go to sleep, and your mind sort of goes to like this twilight sleep wake of different thoughts, different thought patterns, life experiences, past things that have happened, things that you have to do, things that you're currently doing. It's just a lot of racing thought. Just your mind is literally swirling to problems, into a situation that you're, whether you have to address or you think you have to address, or just, memories. A lot of those memories are not good memories, they're bad memories too. So the second thing is, again, trouble falling asleep in the first place. The anxious type, you can wake up, it can be between 2 and 4, you can be awake for, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, a little bit more, but eventually you fall asleep. And if you don't have to wake up with an alarm, a lot of times, if you let your body sleep, you're able to naturally work out that sleep cycle. You'll be, generally speaking, okay. With this one here, you have a hard time falling asleep after you wake up. So you toss and turn and you feel like you're not asleep a few hours, but then you notice that sometimes you just kind of doze off slightly without really achieving any restful sleep or any kind of deep sleep. Again, thoughts are really fragmented, hazy, yet persistent. It's really weird. But the contributing factors and the triggers for the overthinking type, these are usually powerful psychological aspects to it. Oftentimes, physiological reasons, why you cannot fall asleep well are, again, gut health, okay, poor gut health, or, antibiotic use, overuse, in this case, PPI overuse, they'll disturb the microbiome and they'll exacerbate this type of insomnia due to its connection to the neurotransmitters like serotonin, because, a lot of your serotonin is mitigated, produced in the gut. So you have gastrointestinal problems, especially dysbiosis and pathogenicity. That's something that you will have to address without fail. Blood sugar fluctuations are big. So low or high blood sugar, from food or alcohol consumption. Here's alcohol again. Remember, will worsen nighttime awakings without fail, especially, if you're pre-diabetic, you have, insulin sensitivity, you have, hypoglycemic, any kind of blood sugar dysregulation, doesn't matter whether it's high or low, it will cause awakening. Okay. Number 3, hormonal changes. Again, perimenopause, menopause, andropause for males, and menstrual cycle dysregulation can play a significant role. So these are, pretty significant things that actually will cause that type of, insomnia. Regardless of the thoughts or what's racing, a lot of those are really connected ultimately to hormones. Whether it's, insulin sensitivity, blood sugar dysregulations, obviously, hormonal changes, and gut health. All those are going to involve certain hormones. Okay, so that has to be addressed. So to activate the nervous system, regulation, heal this type of insomnia, you have to create boundaries that obviously limit stress and allow for deep relaxation at night. So the lifestyle habits and patterns with nutrition and sleep hygiene that I described, they're going to stand in any of those insomnia types. Okay. So you have to, make sure that you start your midday and evening meditation routine. The meditation here, relaxation, like some people do like 10 minutes of Qigong. You can go on YouTube and pull up like daily 10-minute Qigong, move slow, calming movements. As stupid as they look, they actually work really good. So this is something you can start, midday and, before bed. Address what you can address and respect the fact that things that you cannot address, you have no control over. You just, you can't worry about those. But whatever you can address as far as stress, do it. Again, pleasant, quiet reading before sleep. Cold room, dark room, no noise, no stimulation, no artificial blue light. Kill the LEDs, replace your reading light at night with like a low grade blue light free bulb. Blue light, blackbluelight.com. That's one of the best companies. They have everything. They have glasses, they have iPhone screens that black blue light further. They have all sorts of bulbs, you name it. Eating plenty of protein and fiber with healthy starch and healthy fats before bed. Basically, a very well-balanced, good meal. What that does is lowers the glycemic load of the meal and gives you a low glycemic meal in general. So you have a steady release of energy throughout the night. I'm telling you something right now. People that do ketogenic diets and are trying to lose weight during insomnia patterns, sleep problems, and low carbs, you're making things worse, and you're going to get a price eventually. I promise you, you'll pay the price. The worst thing you want to do is when you have sleeping problems, eat no carbohydrates at night. Carbohydrates, whether it's from fruit or yams, potatoes, rice, sweet potatoes, with good quality protein and healthy fats, it really provide a good stable energy, and also those carbohydrates really are necessary for good serotonin production, on mitigation of serotonin production at night. I can't tell you how many times people eat just vegetables and a lean protein with little to no healthy fat, no carbohydrates, and they'll make your sleep worse without fail. I promise you, try that. Eat a good healthy carbohydrate with good healthy protein and healthy fat, and you will see what I'm talking about. You can add vegetables, obviously fiber, that will even further lower the glycemic load of the meal, gives even more low-grade sustained energy throughout the night. So you avoid those blood sugar spikes. Try that, but avoid low or no carbohydrates at night. I'm telling you, that's not, and I'm not talking about eating processed carbohydrates. I'm talking about real healthy starch consumption. So that'll make a difference. If you don't believe me, if you have a continuous blood glucose monitor, CGM, try it. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see this massive spikes in blood sugar if you have blood sugar dysregulation with your insomnia. How that will improve very quickly. Okay, so that's very important. Lastly, another primary reason why you wake up in the middle of the night is because of, again, sex hormone imbalance, which often will get worse in perimenopausal women. Men are easier. Testosterone, low testosterone absolutely will affect sleep. For males, it's simple. Go there, get your testosterone checked, total and free, and go to the proper person to help you replace that. And you'll be amazed how fast and easily you improve, relatively speaking. So doing a comprehensive hormonal assessment, to support your health sleeping journey is essential. But here again, you have to work with a holistic practitioner or somebody who knows what they're talking about and what kind of testing they have to use. And this is why the adrenal stress index, 4-point salivary cortisol, or any test that will include that is very essential. There's called a Dutch test. That's probably one of the most comprehensive, hormonal tests you can do. It'll reveal pretty much everything in that aspect. So this is that type of insomnia. These are, generally speaking, the magnesium that I described in the anxious type, the threonate, malate, glycinate, that still applies. GABA, L-theanine, what do you call it? I lost my train of thought. The other supplement that we talked about, melatonin, that too applies. And remember, that's going to apply in any of those insomnia types that I'm talking about. All right, let's get to it because it's going to be a long one, unfortunately. So number three is going to be the overtaxed type of insomnia. Overtaxed insomnia people, this really embodies very well our modern fast-paced lifestyle. These are the people that are constantly pushing, striving, boundaries, struggling to balance work, play, rest, and they're really struggling bad, like failing to balance. That's all. It's not like they're struggling, but they're doing it. It's like they're struggling and failing. So this lifestyle eventually catches up to the person, and they start to go downhill from there, usually in many other aspects. So by the way, remember, you're not going to have a true insomnia and not have any other chronic disease associated with that. So just let me be clear here, okay? Whether it's the beginning, whether it's not, I don't care what your doctor said because you went to your little physical once a year and they did a little worthless CBC CMP14 test that looks at your heart and, maybe added a few, thyroid panels here and there. That's worthless. That's not going to do anything. So if you're told, you're healthy, everything's fine, you're lied to. You're not going to have chronic, not short-term, but chronic insomnia of some type and not have anything else chronic going on. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right. So the overtaxed types of insomnia, these people usually share the following traits. Okay, they may abruptly awake as early as 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, or slightly earlier than usual wake up time. And they'll be up and at it before the alarm comes in. They usually will feel wide awake, actually, but physically exhausted. There may or may not be mental activity upon waking, thinking about tasks and other stuff, but more often than not, it is. So these are people basically, again, burning the candle at both ends. So if, these people that have sleepless nights, they usually realize that their life is stressful, but they're just not doing anything about that. They will feel exhausted. They wish they can sleep, but their body's just too wired to even allow them, to properly sleep and, wake at the usual time. So the overtaxed insomnia types, develops, again, stress-induced sleep issues are very common, right? They occur more frequently in individuals that juggle, long-term responsibilities and pressures, careers, kids, family problems, other issues, money problems. These are, long-term, ongoing active stress. There's not something that happened in the past. It is just a short-term stress. For example, moving across the country and starting a new job. These are your day-to-day, daily grind struggles and responsibilities that just mount up. And they'll, like anything else, they ultimately catch up to you. So the stress in this context encompasses a broad spectrum of triggers, including, unprocessed emotional stress. People again, financial struggles, raising a family, caring for parents, for example, or sick spouses. It can be a lot, but the unprocessed emotional stress is, a lot of those people feel deep sadness, frustration, fear, especially when suppressed or, mislabeled as just stress. So this one has to be careful because it has to be really evaluated by a proper, counselor or psychiatrist, because anything that is unprocessed emotional stress, the hectic lifestyle will trigger and will cause that. Lifestyle stress. Again, these are your, working long, irregular, hectic hours, excessive screen time before bed, intensified responsibilities. Like I said, caring for, aging parents or, caring for sick, spouses or kids, and other strains that are just ultimately strain and challenge the body's natural sleep rhythms because the body just reached its limit ultimately. And then you have also physical stress. So chronic inflammation, undiagnosed infections, mold exposure, toxicity in the body in general, from exogenous or endogenous sources such as food sensitivities or dysbiosis in the gut. These will have sex hormone dysregulation, adrenal health imbalances. So these are physical causes. By the way, a lot of people that are burning the candle at both ends are people that are actually physically fit. And they do excessive exercise, like doing CrossFit and waking up at 3:30 in the morning to go do a CrossFit class at 5 o'clock. That's stupid. Okay, that's when you reckon yourself. Now you might feel better at first. Obviously, you might even be on top of the world when you get fit and healthy, and things are going. But you're going through the stress adaptation cycle, and when you exceed that, and you will, you're gonna end up crashing and burning eventually. I guarantee you. I see all the time. So a lot of people over-exercise. We live in a society that it's do or die, that it's, is what you can do, not what you can recover from, leave everything in the gym, take no prisoners, you crushed your workout, you destroyed your legs and whatever body part you're doing. And it becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy eventually. So really pay attention to your exercise. When you're stressed, when you can't sleep, right, the last thing you're going to need to sit there and be doing CrossFit type workouts, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, doing stupid training for marathons and triathlons that absolutely drain you. Again, you're confusing the fact that, yes, these are healthy activities. It's not like drinking and smoking and doing drugs or eating processed food. This can have definitely benefit, and they can be a healthy part of a lifestyle, but are you doing them at the right doses? It's like drinking good, healthy, pure water. Well, you can drink too much. Okay. So you really have to be mindful of what type of exercise are you doing. If you're sleeping well, if life is going well, if, aside from the minor responsibilities and stressors and nuisances in life, or short-term something that is going on, like, moving or, new job, whatever the case might be, somebody like loss of a parent, which, they're elderly, naturally they die. These are transient, short-term things. That's fine. But when you're dealing with, you have sleeping problems of any kind, you have stress, you have anxiety, the last thing you want to be doing is asking your body to do something that even further causes the stress. I see it all the time. People are absolutely chronically overtrained. And they will, at the very best, prevent you from healing eventually. You're gonna get worse. I promise. I know you feel better when you exercise. I understand that. Yes, you're in releasing endorphins, but that unfortunately is a short transient benefit, and the long term of that stressor, which high-intensity exercise is the stress, it's going to get you. So really consider that. I had personally, I love training. I love, strength training, whether it be powerlifting, Olympic, lifting, couple that with bodybuilding, other activities that are strenuous. There were a few periods in my life that I had to completely downregulate those to a very high level, like 20, 30% of what I used to do, to be able to recover from the couple of times I had severe stress and issues that I dealt with, because it just became too much. And even though I used to thrive on those exercises and that type of training, I had to drastically reduce that and add things that I didn't like to do, such as, breathing, qigong, meditation, just, light bodybuilding, doing higher reps, lower weight, more get of a pump, kind of flush the body out with blood and oxygen. Then the, heavy type of stuff like deadlifts, squats, clean and presses, heavy, explosive, high straining exercise that I love to do. To this day I do. But I had to respect my limit. So this is a big problem, especially for the younger people. If you're younger and, in your 30s, early 40s, burning the candle at both ends, it will catch up to you. I absolutely promise you that. The last thing here is the external stressors. In this type of insomnia, external stressors are very important. So these are like living in toxic environments or engaging in unhealthy relationships also contributes drastically and significantly to your sleep. When I say toxic environment, I'm talking about relational toxic environment, not physical like toxins, but toxic spouse, toxic family, toxic work environment, toxic neighbors. I don't know, whatever it might be, whatever you have control of, you need to eliminate those because they will absolutely drain you. And family is a big one, unfortunately, that I see a lot. So just keep those in mind. So how do you start to heal from the overtaxed type of insomnia? Well, this form of insomnia really, again, shows up in individuals who are constantly busy, both physically and mentally, to the point of literally depleting their health bank account, right? Quote unquote. The key here is to heal is use mindfulness, prioritize enough time for restful sleep and rest, creating a balanced life, eliminating the stresses in your life the best that you can. Sleep must precede activities. So you get late at night and you're wired from work and you want to come down and watch some, mindless screens and stupid things on TV, which I understand can relax you temporarily. That's where the rubber meets the floor, the road, and you have to fight and get the discipline. So instead of, again, eating and processed food, getting a couple of drinks in to come down, watching some stupid things and, scrolling mindlessly on social media, watching a favorite show, this is where you drink some fresh water, make an herbal calming tea like chamomile, take your supplements, take a good Epsom salt bath, put the light down, put your, blue light blocking glasses on, read a little bit and go to bed. It might take you a week or two to be able to get those habits going. But these are the choices that you literally make. So when you walk into the door at nighttime, what are you going to do? Are you going to grab that alcohol? Are you going to grab the processed food? Are you going to start watching episodes and so forth? Or doing something else? Or are you going to, okay, I'm going to walk into the door and now I'm going to actually practice sleep hygiene practices immediately. So this is a big one. There's no way around that. Okay? You just, again, you can take all the stupid supplements you want. You might see some improvement. Perhaps for a time being, you might not. But ultimately, it's never going to address the root cause. So this is very important. Okay. And again, the key to healing is mindfulness, prioritizing enough time for restful sleep and creating a balanced lifestyle. Sleep must precede activities. Remember that. All right. So a lot of people say, well, is it good to exercise in the morning? Boy, not a problem, as long as you slept. So in here, if you have to get up and do your CrossFit or go do a cardio, well, guess what? Sleep precedes everything. Everything. I don't care how good the exercise is for you. I don't care if you have to get up an hour early because you got a juice, which juicing is great for you, obviously, on many levels. If you practice that, I don't care. Sleep precedes everything. If you ask me, should I do this to sleep? My answer is always going to be sleep. Sleep. Until you get that into your head, that you literally Nowadays, you have to fight with all you got because everything in our society is designed for you to have fun and destroy yourself while you're doing it. It is cheap and it is easy. All right. So again, that is it. Also, asking a critical question like, what truly matters in my life? Okay, what habits can I change? What habits do I need to change? And then what habits can I actually change? Right? What can you do to slow down, to create a space for feeling present and connected? Yeah, okay. The mentality we live in is okay, when then, if then. Let's hit it hard now because I'm going to get on the other side and then I'll be happy. It'll never happen. You'll never have enough money. You'll never have enough, or live in a place that you're completely trouble-free, stress-free, bliss, and everything will be over with. Not, when your kids leave for college, when you get the car, when you get the promotion, when you pay off the house. I just got to work a little harder now. I just get a little more now. Seldomly, first of all, that'll never happen, but then very seldomly in life, you have situations that, okay, I might have to grind here for the next couple of months or even a couple of years to catch up, but I have a realistic goal that will happen, and then things will be I can live a healthy life or normal. Seldom. There's also this nonsense of stupidity that's going around. Some idiots are promoting that basically if you don't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're not good enough. You're not disciplined enough. Or there's this magic notion that if you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, okay, and you go to the gym, you're going to change your life. No, you will not. What's going to happen is you're going to disrupt your circadian rhythm. You're going to have to, work out. You're going to get your cortisol up. And then guaranteed about 9, 10, 11 o'clock hits, you're going to crash like a bad train crash because the cortisol is going to go down. And then you're going to feel like a drug the rest of the day. I guarantee you that. And what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to keep pumping caffeine and energy drinks and coffee and all that nonsense. Again, these are habits and things that you really, really have to change. Here using therapies short-term, such as acupuncture, stress regulation tools, again like meditation, qigong, yoga, obviously, really can make a difference. Gradual schedule adjustments that you can do to start to soothe the nervous system, which will allow you ultimately for a deeper and better sleep. Okay. If there are root causes, again, such as possible cortisol imbalances, sex hormone imbalances, inflammation, toxicity, like I described, work with a practitioner to find these. One thing that we live in, as I said before in many of my podcasts, is that we live in a day and age that we have super information highway in front of us. Now on top of that, we have the artificial intelligence. Basically, everybody can sound like they're an expert. Everybody thinks they're a researcher. They know what they're talking about. And I always say this, you don't. All you have is information. First of all, you don't even know whether you have the right information or not, for one. And number two, you don't even know how to apply that information. Okay? Because if that was the case, everybody's going to be their own physician. Everybody's going to be their own attorney. Everybody's going to be their own electrician, plumber, roofer, accountant. I don't know. Right. Ultimately, none of us would need any of us. Okay, we can all do everything ourselves. That's a lie. Okay, and the sooner you begin to understand and appreciate that, the better off you're going to be on many levels. Okay, that's why people have professions. Yes, you have exceptional people that can do certain things. People are good at accounting. They can do accounting themselves, even though they're not an accountant. Great. Yes, you have testimonies that some people have healed chronic disease. These are far few in between, believe me when I tell you. Or also, what they describe as chronic disease was actually a very low grade, a very relatively new chronic disease that was easy to address. Something like I was a pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, great. You can reverse diabetes in about 3 months flat. Who cares? Good luck doing that with ulcerative colitis. Okay, with an LS or MS or something really deep, or something like cancer. You're not doing it. So respect the fact that people have professions for a reason. With that being said, if you cannot address things fast and you don't see, if there's really no improvement of any kind or very little, or I've hit a plateau, reach out to a health practitioner, somebody who actually knows what they're talking about and who has clinical experience. That's going to help you. All right, moving on fast. Wow, we are definitely going to be a long podcast today. The fourth type is the depleted type of insomnia. This is pretty much self-explanatory. These types show up with people struggling with unique form of insomnia that actually develops really much later in life, relatively speaking. They show up as waking up after precisely 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And they find it difficult, if not impossible, to return to sleep. These are the people that, especially that are financially successful, some level especially, they're the ones, well, I only sleep 4 or 5 hours a day. Great, that's not good for you. Okay, I don't care who you are, that's not good for you. Again, people, you might have those crazy outliers. My understanding is our, President Trump, bless his heart, he apparently barely sleeps. And obviously he has a tremendous amount of success, financial and otherwise. Many people have talked about literally making comments like he should be studied because he is an anomaly. He is a severe outlier. Yeah, however God created him, that man is wired differently. We're not talking about people like that. We're talking about the 99.99% of people like us. But these people that wake up after 4 hours of sleep and can't go to sleep, that's a usual, very, very strong, typical type 4 depleted insomnia. Unlike the overtaxed or the anxious type, this type actually does not feel wired or groggy, but are instead resigned and calmly awake. It's very weird. I have my suspicions. I could be absolutely wrong, and I'm not making any statements, but I would not be surprised if, again, our president, Trump, has some form of type of depleted insomnia. I don't know. But, they're very, again, they're not groggy and they don't feel wired, but they have this resounding, calm awakeness to them when you see them. Age factor. This type of generally appears in individuals in their late 40s or later, most commonly actually starting in their 60s. Again, these are statistical patterns. They're not absolute. And these contributing factors include, again, aging, a lifetime of cumulative low-grade stress. So why does the depleted insomnia, really develop? Yeah, again, it usually takes decades and gradually develops over time. Depletes the body, and is less. The more it develops, it's less likely to actually fully resolve. Though partial improvements are often welcome, by people that struggle with that. So the underlying root cause of this type of insomnia, are the following. They're not limited by any means, what I'm going to say, but again, the patterns are neurotransmitter depletion, right? So you have low levels of serotonin and gaba. Over time, there's chronic stress, poor diet, and aging will cause these chemicals to deplete by default. Genetic factors, again, are some. There's particularly, I guess, COMT gene variants. I never really investigated what those are, but there's a suggestion towards that. Again, I don't really pay attention much to genetic factors because, if they're true or not, or to what level they're true, there's nothing you can do about that. So don't waste your time worrying about that. Spend your time worrying about the things that you can't control. The other aspect is cumulative damage. Again, chronic gut infections, undiagnosed toxins, long-term chronic stress, impactful life events like accidents, surgeries, medications, trauma. Again, all these contribute to disturbances. Aging in what's called a yin depletion. Traditional Chinese medicine, in that practice, the aging process depletes yin fluids like estrogen, progesterone, neurotransmitters, which ultimately is just normal part of aging. Okay? You're not going to have a 90-year-old with the testosterone levels of a 30-year-old. It's not going to happen. Again, the body that requires less of these as we age, sufficient levels still remain essential for healthy life, and that includes sleep. So when you chronically and prematurely deplete these hormones and energy in general, you start to struggle. Brain detoxification. So research highlights the brain's need for deeper sleep cycles to clean up toxins and harmful proteins, which again become less efficient when sleep cycles shorten. the brain goes through particular activity that quote unquote cleans itself, what's easily practically described as. And that's why sleep is so essential. That's why, if you remember, if you ever have, remember when you were a kid or adolescent, or in young adulthood, you're able to wake up like, wow, I just feel phenomenal. I'm not ready to tackle the day. That's the kind of sleep you ultimately want. Okay. And that's hard to find and come by nowadays. But why you feel fresh is because the brain goes through many different biochemical reactions that take place. And ultimately, it just cleans itself out and rejuvenates. Just like your muscles, your brain has to rejuvenate. Okay. And that's why sleep is absolutely vital. Okay. So how do you start the healing process for the depleted insomnia? This is just not about sleep, right? It's about nurturing the entire body, back to good health. Ultimately, what really works for the depleted type is to identify the most important areas to work on. So if somebody's struggling with digestive issues, start with that, whatever is the most bothersome. Again, this is regardless the great starting point, because as I said before, I never seen somebody having chronic sleep problems and not have gut problems. So when digestion improves, a lot of things improve. And this will, enhance nutrient absorption, assimilation, and support neurotransmitter function. So for example, when you have gut problems, you're not digesting and assimilating and utilizing vitamins and minerals, amino acids. Therefore, say you had H. pylori, chronic H. pylori infection, you don't have H. pylori now, but it did damage. So now your hydrochloric acid is not proper. Your pepsin is not well. Your elastase enzyme is not being produced. You're lacking that. Your bile acids are not strong, or they're dysregulated, which is a real thing. Ultimately, you're not digesting food right. And now you cannot produce or have enough of the proper amino acids that are needed to produce serotonin, dopamine, so forth and so on. So that's why gastrointestinal health is essential. Also, what about if you continuously have gut problems, you have chronic inflammation, you're producing insane amount of endogenous histamine, now you're in a chronic state of inflammation, and histamine itself can produce anxiety, which can cause sleep problems and other issues in general. Everybody's familiar with antihistamine medications, but what a lot of people don't know is that actually histamine intolerance can contribute to psychiatric issues or exacerbate them, such as depression, anxiety, and so forth. Ultimately, of course, sleep. So taking care of the gut is essential. Somebody has histamine intolerance, they'll always have a gut problem. Again, chicken or the egg, don't know, don't care. Has to be addressed. Okay. Collaborating with a practitioner, again, who really understands how to leverage your genetics for better health can significantly enhance the sleep quality and quantity. You can't guess, you have to test. Let's just pick balancing sex hormones, balancing neurotransmitters. All those things make a difference. And for fastest turnaround, again, you have to test. Organic acid test, certain blood tests are absolutely essential for that, because you can black and white show what's dysregulated. Number 5 is the last one. This is the overburdened type of insomnia. I remember, guys, a lot of those will overlap. Okay, I've seen people have 4 out of those 5 ultimately, or at some point or another. So the overburdened type of insomnia expresses basically a fundamental imbalance in the body, lacking essential elements for proper function, while being overloaded with irritants that disrupt your system. This type of insomnia often feels is like you have an internal irritant that is preventing you from restful sleep. And that's the best way you can describe it. This is commonly experienced by individuals, who have tried numerous remedies with limited to no success ultimately. This type of insomnia has a couple of characteristics to it. They usually experience restless sleep, often waking up unsure of how much sleep they even got, even though they're technically sleeping. The feelings of restlessness, or being pulled sort of out of sleep. These are just subjective aspects to it. And this insomnia usually develops from combination of environmental and internal stressors. Again, often leading to chronic inflammation that disrupts some physiological processes and ultimately disrupting sleep. So the key contributors, usually, again, it's definitely not limited, but it can be chronic infections such as Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme's, other subliminal and chronic infections that have not been identified. And if these are not addressed, this it will never be fixed. You just have to address those. Environmental toxins, things like herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, chemicals from air fresheners, cumulative from air fresheners, from other environmental things, your lawn treatment, your, shampoos, conditioners, perfumes, lotions, contraceptives, if you have a hobby of working on vehicles or any kind of machinery, you're working with, chemicals, solvents, basically environmental toxicity. Okay, mold toxicity is very common with cause. These for people, that a lot of them will have sleep issues, and they require special detoxification support and the environment to be remediated from mold. So the only way you're going to know if you had mold toxicity, even if you have removed yourself from the mold or has been remediated, is if you do a special test called a mycotoxin urinary metabolite test. Okay, so again, you can't guess, you got to test, really black and white. You do the mycotoxin test, see what's in it. And I can't tell you how many times I've resolved root chronic issues that have baffled a person for years because they were literally lived in very heavily mold infested dwelling or worked in a mold place that had chronic mold. It might have been years ago, but they still had the mycotoxins in them. Okay, and that's different. People confuse the actual organism of mold as opposed to the mycotoxins, which are the chemicals that those molds produce. And they stay in the system. They have a tendency to stay in the system for a very long time, especially people who have compromised detoxification ability. So you got to test, you can't guess. Okay, personal care, again, household products, these are laden with chemicals. I cannot tell you how much stuff, like the Glade air fresheners, the Febreze garbage that people spray all the time. It is absolutely atrocious. You have no idea the chemicals that are in there. Heavy metal exposure, again, via food environment or dental work. Heavy metals can be definitely a problem. Absolutely can be a problem, no joke, but not everybody is sensitive to those. So that's a big misconception that, people get blamed a lot of stuff for heavy metals. Again, you have to test. You have to use proper testing to know. Okay, a regular blood work is not going to show much. It can, okay, if it's acute especially. But if it's chronic, especially low grade, that can only be done with proper testing. And even if somebody has, dental amalgams, for instance, mercury toxicity, they have to remove those before they can detoxify anything. But believe it or not, I personally, in my practice, have not found that a lot of people have heavy metals and or that they were actually a problem. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying what I've personally found. Remember, this is my podcast. This is what I've experienced. Take it or leave it. This is something I'm just sharing the truth with you based on my professional and personal experience. So don't hang on every word that you hear. Okay, test, don't guess, see if there's a problem. Gut health. So you guys notice in every single one of those subtypes, types, gut health and gut, imbalances come in. So in this case, again, bacterial overgrowth or chronic pathogenicity. It can be viral, bacterial, or it can be parasite based. You have to test. You cannot guess. So when you have gut imbalances, inflammation, and pathogenicity, absolutely they'll cause sleep disturbances on many levels. It can be something from a physical standpoint of people having severe bloat and gas, or they have chronic diarrhea with severe IBD that they have to get up and they have to stool 2, 3, 4, 5 times throughout the night because otherwise they'll soil the bed. It's horrible. So again, gotta address the gut. Gut is everything. Sleep apnea. A lot of people walk around with sleep apnea. The issues with oxygen saturation levels that are chronically suppressed will absolutely cause sleep disturbances. And among that, I don't even have to go into what insomnia can actually cause. what sleep apnea can actually cause, aside from the, contribute to insomnia. So that has to be addressed. Sleep apnea can be sometimes hard to detect, so you have to get tested. Go to the proper, conventional medical, professional that deals with that. They're good with that, and they can. And sleep apnea machines, the CPAP machines that people get put on, they can be literally lifesavers. Okay, yeah, nobody wants to be on it, but the alternative is horrible. A lot of people that have been diagnosed properly, finally, they've been put on CPAP machines, and they actually have gotten sleep. They actually can attest to like, wow, I've never even remember what true sleep was until I actually got that addressed. So it can be a simple thing as sleep apnea that causes that type. So how do you ultimately, heal from the overburden type of insomnia? Ultimately, this is going to be, again, back to everything that we talked about, the other types. Address all those aspects that we have. Work with a holistic practitioner. If you're not sure, it can save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, money, and aggravation in the long run. But again, look for those patterns that I saw, that I described. There are chronic infections, environmental toxins, chemicals, heavy metals, from food, environment, dental work, gut imbalances and issues, sleep apnea. These are very essential to address. The sleep hygiene, that still is going to apply here as well, regardless. It can't hurt, but in this particular one, that type of pattern is not gonna, it'll probably make the least difference. So remember, you have to address the root cause of the insomnia, the sleep problems that you have, okay? In order to sleep again well, you have to. There's no quick fix. And you can take meaningful and personalized steps toward creating a restorative, uninterrupted, deep, restful sleep. Are you going to sleep perfect? You're not all the time. We live in a fallen world. Ultimately, you have a lot of problems. So somewhere, somehow, you're going to get interrupted. That's normal. That's part of life. But when it becomes, these are acute, scattered, not common events. You're right. You might have a severe thunderstorm. You might have a tornado warning. Your child might be sick or something, or have a bad nightmare. Who knows? But these are rare. When it becomes a chronic problem, it's a different issue. Also, keep something in mind. Let's see, you have a young parent who are parents and the child wakes them up. That is normal. Yes, you're going to feel tired. Yes, you're going to feel exhausted, but you don't have chronic disease. You don't have a chronic problem sleeping. You have a physical interruption that is completely unrelated to your health that is taking place. In this case, a young baby, right? Or you had a tornado warning that happened a few times in a row every night, whatever it might have been. And these are things that your body is able to handle. Not a problem. When you're healthy, you can handle that because you don't have chronic disease. And otherwise, aside from those acute, rare problems, you sleep perfectly fine because you're healthy. The problem becomes when you have chronic disease, when you have chronic issues. And when you have chronic sleep, true chronic sleep problems, you are going to have other chronic issues going on at the same time. You'll never have perfect health and have just an isolated chronic sleep problem that is stemming from within you. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Again, there's no quick fixes. You have to have proper lifestyle intervention, right? Therapeutic dietary intervention, supplemental intervention, and other nutritional considerations, habits. Look at your diagnostic biomarkers with specialty testing, and try to start to work to address the sleep problem the best that you can. I can tell you that nothing is going to be fixed overnight, but you have a choice to keep getting worse because you're not going to stay the same. You are going to keep continually causing more and more damage to your physiology if you don't sleep right. Or you can start taking small steps every day to start to improve something. And over a period of time, these little small changes and steps add up to big, big wins that are going to drive you towards health and ultimately sleep. So if you guys want to, need help, want to know more about it, testing, functional testing, and proper nutraceuticals, go to our website, drpnd.com, reach out to us. We offer free consultations. Go to our store. You can get, high quality GABA, melatonin, the 3 forms of magnesium, as I spoke, which is the magnesium malate, magnesium glycinate, and magnesium threonate. There's also a product that really works well for a lot of people, has actual other herbs in there that really help. It's called a Trimeg Supreme Night powder that has 2 of the 3 forms of magnesium that I talked about. Again, these are just simple things that you can start doing to help improve. It can't hurt. It can only help. It will never address the root cause. It will never take that away from you. So don't be mistaken, but it can definitely improve. And any improvement is better than no improvement. Remember also glycine and L-theanine. These are free form amino acids that really help really well with, beginning to address neurotransmitter deficiency and so forth. You reach out to us. Anybody that purchases from our store, you guys not only get a free consultation, but you also get direct advice on dosing patterns and sequences and on protocols. Again, I understand that working with a holistic practitioner is not cheap. Insurance doesn't cover that. Hopefully that changes. But there's a lot you can do. And, that's, again, as long as you're using our store, we take care of that. So we'll be able to actually tell you what dose, how to take it, when to take it. If there's any medication that you're on, we'll be able to see if there's any interactions or any depletion patterns that those medications cause, that we can advise further on proper use of nutraceuticals. So anyway, that was a very long seminar, hour and almost 30 minutes. I apologize for that, but there's just, again, issues are not simple, and me just bottom lining things real fast. It'll be just a bunch of nonsense information that is really not going to do anything. Even as thorough as I went today, that still doesn't do it justice, but at least I want you guys to be truly aware of what the issues are and, how deep they go. So until next time, hope you guys have a great day. Stay healthy. If you're not healthy, start doing something today to get healthy. Your health is your greatest wealth. If you don't have health, honestly, you don't have a lot or anything really. So this is Dr. PND again for today's podcast. Until next time.
Thank you for your valuable time and for listening to the Your Health Reclaimed podcast with Dr. PND. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and share this episode with a person you know it can help. If we can help you in any way, or you would like to connect with Dr. PND, please visit drpnd.com. That's drpnd.com.